Hello, everyone, and welcome to this podcast series where we will be discussing various aspects of IoT, the Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence with a number of SAS experts. My name is Marta Muñoz, and I lead IDC Europe's Internet of Things practice. And today I have with me Bill Roberts, who is the Senior Director for Products, Partners and Advisory of the IoT division at SAS. So welcome, Bill. Real pleasure to have you here today.
Hey, Marta. It's great to be here and to get a chance to talk to you. It's like once a year we either get to see each other or speak to each other.
Absolutely. Even less now these days, Bill. So thank you very much for your time here today. And so, Bill, I would like to start with a bit of a market perspective here. We have some research in IDC that shows that the IoT market is entering what we call a new maturity phase, actually, where customers now understand what the full business value and the benefits of the IoT technology actually are. And they are currently looking at scaling some of the isolated IoT projects that they might have been testing until fairly recently, actually. We have some data according to our latest surveys across European IoT decision makers, actually. We just conducted this from October 2020, so quite fresh off the press as we speak. And we have data that shows that 50% of European organizations are already deploying IoT, and they actually plan to extend their deployments in the coming months. Those results also show a further 39% of respondents who plan to launch IoT projects in the next 12 to 24 months, actually. But however, despite IoT being widely adopted by organizations, we still see that nearly a quarter of them admit that IoT data analytics is one of the top challenges for them at the moment. And in fact, we still find a considerable proportion of organizations who do not analyze the IoT data that they collect in any meaningful way. So perhaps, Bill, my first question to you is what are, in your view, from your own experience with talking to customers, the reasons for these organizations not analyzing their IoT data?
Yeah, those are interesting results in October, so influenced by the pandemic, right? Yet you see some really positive things in the market, which I think from a SAS perspective, we've also felt and similar impact globally. So IoT projects continue to ramp up, and the focus still continues to be primarily on efficiencies and cost reductions. A lot of new pandemic-based initiatives as well that are using IoT and artificial intelligence. So a whole crop of new things that are starting. But we are also seeing just experience where organizations are looking to spin up, scale out projects that were either pilots or very small scale. There are still barriers to being able to do that. Obviously, when you build something from a pilot or very small scale, you're making different choices than you would make if you were building for enterprise scale right from the get-go. There can be different technology decisions, different infrastructure decisions. There can be complexity around those decisions. Certainly interactions between IT ecosystem partners and lines of business who are responsible for the value or the outcomes of these initiatives can still be an issue, even beyond the pilots or the small proof activities. There can also be a lack of analytic resources. Organizations may have been able to get away with small groups or even individuals who can help validate or prove out ideas or hypotheses around an analytic approach, but it's a whole different group, or I should say a whole different discipline to take that and make it enterprise scale, and then be able to think of all the elements to deploy it, manage it over time. So yeah, there's still a lot of work to be done on moving things into enterprise scale in order to capture the value.
Absolutely, I do agree with you on that. And I know that SAS offers the your analytics for IoT offering at the moment, and that gives visibility across the entire data lifecycle, including different steps like selecting the relevant data, transforming it, exploring and understanding it, but also aspects related with governance and the monitoring of the models, for example. I'm interested to hear your view as to what extent is it important that customers take all of these aspects into consideration, really, because often customers tend to forget or not necessarily pay the necessary attention to all of those different steps of the data life cycle, really. So what's your view on how important all of these aspects need to be?
Well, in our view, they're all important because they all have the potential to derail a project and divert from the valuable outcome. And it's really difficult. It can be really difficult to think of all of these things ahead of time, which is why SAS puts a lot of emphasis on really trying to bring capability and automation around the entire analytics lifecycle. So what you said, all the way from building models at scale, deploying models at scale, and then managing those in context of the business processes that businesses are relying on in order to capture the value. Things change, technology changes, things break, context changes, and so being able to put a single model out on a single device that maybe has a point impact on a single business process looks and feels very manageable. When you start, taking that into the tens or hundreds or thousands of models and processes that are impacted, you can see where the scale alone just makes that entire process so very important.
Absolutely. Yes, very, very key actually. And I bet this is a question that you're often asked as well, but I think it's important to understand, what does a company like SAS bring to the table when customers are considering artificial intelligence and IoT deployments, AIoT as we call it? What would you say are your biggest differentiators at the moment? What can SAS offer?
Well, there's a couple things that I think we will typically do and speak about. The first thing that we will tend to do is not necessarily lead with the analytics or the capabilities, but try and understand what an organization is trying to achieve and how they're trying to get there. I think that alignment is so important because the technology works. Analytics work. We kind of know that, right? But if we spend all our time focused on the math or whatever, then we can lose sight of, okay, so is this the appropriate approach for what we're all trying to achieve at the other side? So from a SaaS perspective, we spend a lot of time working with organizations to try and understand and evolve that outcome. The second thing that we do, now back into where SaaS spends all of their investment, is trying to demystify or democratize our approaches to analytics. We started out by saying some of the barriers that organizations face, and certainly a lack of data scientists, could be certainly a barrier. But the reality is a lot of business analysts are quite capable of leveraging analytic capability to help build out approaches to drive outcomes. And so being able to surface capability across that entire life cycle that don't necessarily need data scientists in order to take advantage of is a big deal. And this is a big deal for the way SAS approaches analytics generally and the way we approach, artificial intelligence and the work we're doing to exploit the Internet of Things. And so that would be a really big deal for us. And then obviously the third thing would be managing those really valuable analytic assets, right? So yes, data is super important and data is a corporate aspect, but the models that you're using in order to drive optimized or appropriate business processes are also a corporate asset that need to be managed the same way you would manage the data, the same way you manage your fixed assets and within an organization. So we put a lot of emphasis on how to really make sure that organizations can capitalize on those analytic aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, Bill, you and I could be talking about these for quite a long time, but there's perhaps one thing that I think is key throughout the entire decision making process that customers go through, and it's trying to understand what the business value proposition is for them. Actually, what do you say to those customers that come to you asking what's in it for them? What do they gain out of working with you, and what's really the business value for the organization?
Yeah. Like I said, that's a place where SAS spends a lot of energy because, again, we're pretty confident that the technology works, that analytics can drive value. We've been doing that for a long time. But what organizations are trying to do is leverage IoT to really, put that all into hyperdrive. And so understanding, helping organizations and working with organizations to understand how the outcome is going to drive value is really the most important first step in any project that we get involved in. And we try and do that even when we're working on pilots or proof activities, right? So that we're not just doing academic exercises. Right now, our experience is that although the market is maturing and we're seeing a lot more organizations, like your survey results found, a lot more organizations moving beyond the pilots into some type of production or enterprise scale, these projects still look almost internally focused, where they're improving business efficiencies and reducing costs. So, whether it's a manufacturing example where they're improving yield and reducing the cost of downtime, there's still a lot of potential opportunity when organizations are able to switch and start looking at new business or new revenue opportunities or ways to get closer to the customer. So still a lot of innovative work being done across the IoT and analytics as far as those types of offerings. But critical, I think that any company that is out there should be looking for their ecosystem partners to understand value and not get caught up in the coolest widget technology or analytic, and then try and find a way to put that in place just so they can have something running, right? It's all about what comes back to the customers as far as valuable outcomes.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for that, Bill. And as you say, this new phase of maturity in the IoT deployment certainly will require increasingly the analytics partners' expertise, the knowledge, and the skills that they bring to the table, actually. So the role of the analytics players will become increasingly important across the next phase of IoT deployments, for sure. That's the way we view it in IDC, for sure. So, thank you for your time today, Bill. I thank you for your insights and for sharing what you see with your customers today. It's been a pleasure to have you with us. And for those of you interested in learning more about how the importance of artificial intelligence and IoT and the specific challenges for the manufacturing industry they bring, stay tuned for more episodes in these mini series podcasts. Thank you very much for listening.